Okay, so after obviously living for your mount, after your 2 years there, you were then seconded to the Leeds clinic, weren't you, Margaret?
Went to Leeds University.
Okay.
Sorry. From Linfield Mount, did my CQSW at Leeds University.
Okay, Leeds University.
Right. Oh yes, that was very important. It was for me. And then I went to Bingley Social Services as a generic social worker. That was in Bingley. And then I was, I'm going to use the word headhunted, because there was a new department of social services set up at Springfield called Community Team for Learning Disabilities. And because I'd had a special interest in learning disabilities, because of my Gateway Club and the things, I was asked if I'd like to apply. They were looking for people to work, especially in a fairly specific way, with people with learning disabilities, and I got the interview. Had an interview and got the job. And I love that. I love that. So I did 12 years at Bingley and 12 years at Springfield.
Okay. And so what so in what ways did the new skills you had to learn through your studies at Leeds University, in what ways did they have to be incorporated?
Well, legally, the legal aspect was the biggest aspect, because you had always to be aware of the legal aspects of assessments, documents, working with families. You always were aware that they could be checking up on you, what you were doing as well. So I think it was more a legal aspect. You had a lot of casework to do, you're more responsible. You had a particular caseload of so many, and it was up to you. You had supervision, but it was up to you to follow these particular cases through, whereas a social worker aide, I wasn't really involved in that. I was always doing the trained about jobs with them, but as a qualified social worker, you had a lot more responsibility. You had to make decisions, you had to assess them, you had to make plans, you had to get the plans okayed by your supervisor, you had to make sure there were resources available to work out the money side of it, because it's not as bad as is now, but there was always a can we afford it? Is there a place? So there was always that in mind, looking for emergency places, and yes, it was a lot more in depth as a qualified social worker.
Okay, so you say that it was a lot more in depth than being a qualified social worker. And would you say, did you notice any other differences from it and being a qualified social worker?
Stress. A lot more stress. Yeah. I drank a lot more gin and tonics when I went home at night than I did as an unqualified social worker. Yes, you were responsible for that person and that family, and it was up to you to follow them through. When the referral was made from a school, from a family, from the police, from a nurse, from a hospital, you had to go in from the beginning and find out everything you possibly could. And it wasn't just a 5-minute interview. Sometimes you could be there an hour and a half. Sometimes families were very wary of you. Sometimes they were desperate to see you. Sometimes you were perhaps the only person that ever sat and listened to them. Listening was a great skill. You had to give them time to talk. Not be asking questions all the time. Let them talk to you. Let them tell you all the little things that perhaps they didn't think were important, but when you put them all together, were very important. So it was a listening game and assessing. That's the main thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas as an unqualified person, you just went and did as you were told. Well, not quite, but nearly. So yes, listening and assessing, and then putting together a resource and finding out what was the true needs of that person or family.
Mm. Okay. So after after that and you rest by work, you then started working at the Springfield BRI, didn't you, as a learning disability community nurse with as running assessments?
Yes.
So what type of assessments was it you having to run, and what exactly did the assessments check?
Well, when we took on a referral, it was allocated to a community nurse and a social worker. So we went out in pairs. The community nurse obviously had nursing skills. They were looking at behaviour, medication,
Mm-hmm.
patterns of behaviour, early life, early problems in the medical side of it all, which are very, very important. And I was there to pick up on the home circumstances, how the family or the carer, whoever was involved, were coping with whatever the problem they were presenting to us. Some were quite desperate. Some, it was behaviour problems. And it was a joint decision, the community nurse and myself. Then we would go back to the office and we would sit down together and we would try and make some sort of assessment and then make a plan as to what was best for the person themselves and also the family. So that was a joint partnership. And we'd take it on, usually try to take it on for about 6 weeks to see if we could sort something out within 6 weeks. Whether it was respite that was needed, whether it was to see a specialist, because there was some medical problem that had perhaps been overlooked. Something as simple as getting that person to a dentist was often the case, that they didn't know how to say they had toothache. The family didn't recognise it was, and this person was presenting in a very bizarre way. And when you did a look at either eyes, ears, teeth, the basic things, very often perhaps a trip to the dentist was all that was needed, but the family couldn't cope with it, so between us we would go to the dentist. Sometimes it was a physio, helped to sort something out with a bit of mobility problem, something with Aiden's adaptations. Sometimes it was respite, sometimes it was another appointment to a doctor with the community nurse to go through the medical history to find out if anything had been overlooked, to look at the existing medication. Epilepsy is a great problem, and very often doctors, and I don't like to say this, but it was true, would just give out repeat prescriptions without generally having looked and given an up-to-date assessment on the person. So it was a joint partnership between the medical, the community nurses, and the social aspect of housing, of benefits, of mobility and things like that. So that was a joint partnership. That's how it worked then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're saying also, you're saying also how when you were the community nurse and your new assessments, you then paired up. So in what ways would you say it differed with like the structure and being like paired up to like previous like projects? Because were you usually working? In what way did it differ from like working individually?
Well, you had a benefit of each other's backgrounds and skills. It was the nursing background was extremely important because they had worked, a lot of them had worked at Westwood Hospital, and they were very familiar with the medical side. Obviously, that was their profession. So it was a joint coming together of knowledge, really, which was very beneficial. And I hope they found working with a social worker of some benefit as well. It must have done because it worked for a long time. It's some very good partnerships between nurses and social workers.
Okay, right, thank you. So after working as a community nurse and giving you assessments, you then took on work advising parents who were over 65 and with disabled children.
Yes, that was a project that came in looking through the register and the age groups and working through families. I'm going to cough again, sorry.
It's okay.
Knocking on doors of families who were over the age of 65 and had up to then had no input to respite services. We were doing an assessment of the person, their son or daughter, what their needs were, and we're trying to help the parent or parents or carers, sisters and brothers sometimes, to be aware of what social services could offer when times were difficult in case of illness, bereavement. And the parents that were visiting and carers found it very hard to, how shall I say, let go. And we did a lot of introductory visits. Tea time visits was a beginning. Would you let your so-and-so go to whatever, Copwood, for tea once a fortnight on a Wednesday afternoon? Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. What if this? What if she got raped? What if she got beaten up? What if this? What if? Well, I will go and I will stay with her. And we will have time together. I will make sure she will not get raped to the best of my ability. And we will make her see what she thinks, not make her, see what she thinks or he thinks to having tea at Copwood. And that was a very slow beginning, but that's how often. Then it was an overnight stay, and then it was a weekend, and then it was a respite. But very often it was through the home from home scheme. If parents were very anti social services respite buildings, then we had to make referrals to the home from home scheme, give them a break, which was obviously what I was involved in.
And you say now some parents were very anti social services buildings. In what ways did those parents tend to be against some social services?
They didn't trust us. They didn't trust us because they'd looked after their son and daughter for all their lives, and nobody else could look after them as good as they could, and that was perfectly true. But we had to try and encourage them for their son or daughter's sake, because one day they were admitted to hospital with a heart attack, or they dropped dead, or all sorts of terrible things happened. And then we were left to find a place for their son or daughter, very often at 5 o'clock on a Friday night. Where can we, there's no home for her, where can she go? A lot of, they didn't know what we could offer. And you can understand why. If you don't trust anything and you've never tried it, you're going to have this long-standing fears, aren't you? They won't have the staff there. They won't be able to understand her. They'll give her some food, and if she doesn't like it, she won't eat it, so they won't give her anything else. And that's how you got to start and build bridges, and it was all a bridge building, really, exercise.
And you were saying also, because obviously, as well as caring for the disabled children, and you also had to advise the parents. What type of advice were you generally giving? What type of advice did parents usually seek?
Right, we used to start at the bottom, looking after the day-to-day activities. We looked at benefits. We looked at had the parents made a will, because they always thought, or most of them thought, the only thing in life was to leave all their money, including the house, to their son or daughter. And when you actually went through and tried to explain it to them, it wasn't always the best idea. But you had to be able to spell it out to them that there were other ways of leaving money through trust and through different other schemes. But money was a big thing, that the house would be left to so-and-so and all our savings will go to her. So benefits was a big issue. Advice, really, on letting go. One day, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, but you won't be here to look after so-and-so. We will do our very best. And the more we can find out now about your son or daughter, and the more we can find out about you would like for them, we will have it on paper and we will do our very best to meet the needs. Can't guarantee it, but by doing a full history of the person and the family, what support and other members of the family were available or not available, then we could get a full assessment put together. And it was on paper. The paper assessment was very important, and the parents would be part of that. Okay. They would have this assessment meeting and they would agree or disagree.
Okay.